The alien noblewoman recoiled at the human's touch, a spark of outrage flaring before fear could speak. In that heartbeat, with smoke in her lungs and sirens naming her a target, she swore she needed no help. Only later, if there was a later, would she ask why the human reached for her at all. Lyris. Aaron had been born to vaulted halls and measured voices, to the rituals of a court that prized control the way other worlds prized gold. Her dragons, Auril and Sable, were the only parts of her life that did not bow. Auril rode her right shoulder like a coil of bronze lightning, eyes ember bright. Sable kept to the shadows near her left heel, a slip of night with wings. Together they tracked her pulse as the embassy tower burned. The first blast had shattered the high windows. The second had laced the corridors with fire. Lyris moved through a haze of glass and alarm haze, one hand pressed to the seam of her formal cloak where blood warmed the lining. The world had narrowed to heat and smoke, and the steady weight of Auril's claws holding her calm. Stairs, she whispered. Her throat stung. Auril answered with a soft vibration along her collarbone. Sable darted ahead, tail describing quick shapes left. Then down guiding through the blare of sprinklers and the ankles of strangers. Running the wrong direction, they reached a landing already slick with ash. A section of ceiling groaned, then gave. Lyris flinched as a panel fell, striking sparks off the rail. Before she could recover, a figure burst through the drifting dust compact, soot-streaked. Hair pulled back in a harsh knot, human. The woman took in Lyris's dress and crestpin and the two dragons who watched with sharp, offended eyes. "Ma'am," the human said, voice low and steady despite the chaos. "You need to move." "I am moving," Lyris answered, and hated that it sounded like a lie. Her lungs had shrunk to fists. The smoke had teeth. She shifted to stand without leaning on the rail. The human stepped closer, hand half raised as if to catch a falling weight. "Karen Nolan," she said. "Terran Rescue Unit." Hallway collapsed below. "There's another way," Auril hissed, a bright, thin note. Sable's wings snapped open once, then folded. Lyris lifted her chin. "I do not need to be carried." Kara's mouth quirked. "Good. I'm not strong enough to carry you and both of those lizards." Auril would have taken offense if he knew the word. Lyris did for him. "Dragons," she said. "Right, dragons." "Ma'am." "Listen." The tower shuddered, a structural moan that vibrated through the solace of Lyris's boots. Somewhere below, something tore itself loose. Smoke punched up the stairwell like a thrown curtain, and for a moment she could not see. Kara reached through the gray and found Lyris's forearm, skin to skin, warm and firm and infuriating. Lyris recoiled. Outrage came like breath after near drowning. For one jagged instant she saw nothing but a map of insult, uninvited touch, the presumption of rescue, the humiliation of being led. Kara did not flinch. She released Lyris at once and raised both hands, palms open, as if facing a frightened animal she intended not to startle. "Understood," she said. "No contact." Her voice did not change, but the next words arrived softer. "Follow my voice." Sable pressed lightly against Lyris's calf. Auril's claws tightened and then gentled, a reminder of weight and center. Lyris's breath came back on a frayed string. She could hear past the sirens now. Footfalls, the hiss-pop of active fires, a mechanical heartbeat somewhere near failing. Kara angled her body toward the left corridor, where sprinklers made rain from smoke. "There's a service gantry through the kitchens," she said. "It'll take us to an exterior ladder. We go now or we don't go." "Lead," Lyris said. "At a distance." Kara nodded once. She moved 3 paces ahead, voice drifting back in small, precise lines. "1 step down. Good. Low beam at head height. Duck. Door on your right." Auril tasted the damp air with a flick of tongue. Sable ghosted through the steam and returned, wings beaded with water, to tap the base of Lyris's boot with the barest claw. Yes, the gesture meant. This way. Lyris followed the human she had refused to let steady her, anger cooling against something sharper. The exactness of the path Kara spoke into being. Over the years Lyris had measured people in how they occupied danger. Most swelled to fill the space their fear made. Kara narrowed. She gave names to obstacles and kept walking. They reached the kitchens. Pots lay like wreckage across the floor. A refrigerator had toppled and pinned a young clerk against a prep table. His lips were blue. At his shoulder a woman knelt, palms pressed to the metal as if to lift it by prayer. Kara dropped to a knee, checked the boy's airway, and looked up at Lyris. "We can get him out if we lever from the hinge side," she said. "Do you have a bar?" Lyris finished. She slid her blade flat beneath the seam and braced. Sable wriggled under the opposite edge and wedged his back like a jack, wings rigid. Aro lunged with a lightning crack that fused the fridge's power cable to slag. The smell of scorched insulation cut through the kitchen's wet rot. Together they lifted. Kara pulled the boy clear. He gasped, a drowning man meeting air. The kneeling woman caught her breath on a sob. "Thank you," she whispered, and then stared at the dragons as if gratitude could be divided among scales. Kara didn't look away from Lyris. "You good?" "I am," Lyris said, and found that it was almost true. The air still scraped, but her hands no longer shook. "Then we move." They crossed into the service gantry. The metal throat angled downward toward a rectangle of dim outdoor light. The rain outside fell heavy and earnest, pelting the tower's skin. Wind clawed at the gap. Somewhere close, a siren changed pitch as if remembering its own emergency. Kara paused at the threshold. "Short drop to the ladder," she said. "2 rungs missing at 7 feet. I'll go first and talk you through." No touching. Lyris wanted to say she didn't need the speech. She wanted to say she had scaled worse in dark forests beneath a double moon when she was a girl, barefoot and laughing, with dragons snapping playfully at the hem of her nightdress. But the ladder was slick with rain and soot, and the courtyard below burned bright enough that even the storm could not flatten its light. Pride was a currency. Tonight it could not pay. "Go," she said. Kara swung out and was gone into the weather. Boots ringing on iron. 3 rungs, she called. "Shift left around the break. There's a brace to your right, feel for it with your boot." Lyris followed. Arl clung like a necklace forged for battle. Sable flowed along the ladder's underside, his body a second line beneath her. Wind shoved at her back. Ash stung her teeth. "Brace," Kara called. Lyris found it. She crossed the gap. Arl made a satisfied sound. Almost a purr dot at the courtyard level, Kara stood in firelight, rain turning her hair into black rope. She pointed to a low wall beyond which rescue beacons flickered. A handful of Terrans huddled around a portable shield, faces turned up like flowers to her voice. "Nearly there," she said. "Straight line, watch the gunfire split the rain." The first shot shattered the brace above Lyris's head. The second took the brick at Kara's shoulder and powdered it into the storm. Sable shrieked, a sound that didn't belong to anything soft. Aro launched from Lyris in a blur, drawing a line of bright fury through the wet air as he hit the parapet where the muzzle flash had. Bloomed. Kara spun toward Lyris without thinking. Hand outstretched, then checked the motion at the last inch of space and chose the air instead. Palms steady between them. "Down!" She shouted. "Sniper north angle." Lyris dropped behind the low wall as masonry spat chips across her cheek. She tasted blood. In the smoke beyond, a darker shape shifted another shooter, moving to flank the rescue team. "I see him," Kara breathed. She didn't look. She listened, the way Lyris had heard a hunter listen in winter woods. "On my mark, left. Trust me." The word cut. "Trust me." Lyris met the human's gaze across the storm, the woman she had refused on a landing of fire, the hand she had not taken. Kara's eyes were bright and hard and terribly calm. A figure rose in the smoke. Rifle lifting. Now, Kara said. Lyra surged up with Arl screaming light. Sable a streak at her heel, straight into the next shot. The gunfire cracked again, tearing through the rain. Lyris felt the heat before she heard the scream Arl's lightning arcing mid-her, intercepting the bullet meant for her. The dragon's body flared like molten metal, light splintering into 1,000 sparks before he spiraled downward. Arl! She cried. The sound wasn't a word, but a breaking. Sable shrieked from below, diving toward his fallen kin. Kara grabbed the wall beside her, leaning into the storm, eyes narrowing toward the source of the muzzle flash. "Stay down!" Kara shouted, voice raw. Lyris ignored her. Pain ripped through her chest, a soundless, breathless ache where her dragon's energy still lived in her blood. "Arl!" She called again. Then came the answer, faint, "But alive I burn, not die." Lyris exhaled shakily. She turned toward the smoke, rage replacing fear. "He still breathes." Kara had already unstrapped the sidearm from her belt. "Then let's make sure we all do." She moved low, fast human reflexes honed in fire and dust. The sniper fired again. Kara rolled. Fired back once, twice. A flash of motion at the edge of vision, a figure breaking from the ruins. Cloak dark with rain. Lyris rose without thinking. "There!" The shooter pivoted, weapon rising, but Sable was faster. The little dragon slammed into the assailant's chest, wings flaring. Lightning danced across wet armor. The gun fell clattering into the mud. Kara crossed the distance in 3 steps. She pressed her boot to the alien's wrist, kicking the weapon away. "You're done." The attacker, a Kalari mercenary, like those from the noble court, spat blood into the rain. "You protect her?" "The human touches the untouchable and calls it mercy." Lyris stiffened. She had no words left for this kind of venom. Kara holstered her weapon. "Funny thing about mercy," she said quietly. "It's usually wasted on people who think they deserve at least." The mercenary tried to speak again, but Sable hissed, tail coiling around his throat. Lyris raised her hand. "Enough." The dragon retreated instantly. The man slumped, unconscious. Kara wiped her brow with the back of her hand. "More will come." "That wasn't random." "No," Lyris said. "That was the High Council's doing." Kara turned to her sharply. "You're saying your own people. They would rather their noble houses burn than owe a debt to a human." Lyris said bitterly. "Especially one who touched me." Kara froze, jaw tightening. "I didn't mean to insult you back there." "I know," Lyris said quietly. "But where I come from, to touch the bloodline of Al Rin without permission is unthinkable." "Then you should have let me think you ungrateful," Kara said. "Would have saved you a lot of trouble." The words stung, but under them was something warmer. A threat of respect, frayed and new. Arl reappeared, wings limping through the rain. His scales glowed dim, but he was breathing. Lyris knelt, pressing her forehead to his muzzle. The dragon's eyes fluttered open. "You mourn too fast," he teased weakly. "Quiet," she whispered. "You scared me." Kara crouched beside her. "He's beautiful," she said softly. Arl's slit eyes turned toward her, unreadable. "She smells of smoke and defiance," he sent through the bond. Lyris almost smiled. "He likes you." "Lucky me," Kara said, faint humor breaking the tension. The rain eased, the fires dimmed. Around them, emergency sirens howled into the distance, Terran and Kalari alike responding too late. "What now?" Kara asked. Lyris rose slowly, helping Arail to his claws. "We get you off this world. The council will come for you, and they will not ask twice." Kara frowned. "And you?" "I will face them," Lyris said. "This is my world." Sable hissed in protest. Arl raised his head, voice resonant in her mind. You are our flame. We follow. Lyris looked down at the dragons, then at the human standing defiant against the ruins of her home. No, she said softly. I think I follow now. Kara blinked. You'd leave everything? Everything I was taught to protect, Lyris said. Yes. They crossed the courtyard toward the rescue beacon. The Terran evac shuttle had landed, a gray spear of steel hissing in the rain. Soldiers waved them forward. Then from the shadows near the shuttle, a new voice rang out. Calm, familiar, cruel. Lyris, Aaron, it said. You have broken the oath of houses. A tall Kalari noble stepped into view, his armor burnished silver. Lord Sethan, her cousin. His hand rested on a ceremonial blade. Behind him, 4 enforcers leveled plasma rifles. Lyris froze. Sethan, listen to me. Silence, he commanded. You betrayed the High House by consorting with humans, by letting them touch you. His gaze flicked to Kara, dripping contempt. You shame our line. Kara's jaw tightened. You really want to do this here? This isn't your fight, human. Seems like it is, Kara said, stepping forward, body angled, eyes steel. She saved me. I saved her. That's what happens when people actually act like people. Lyris whispered, Stop, please. But Sethan's face only hardened. Then you'll die like one. He raised his hand. The rifles powered up. Lyris barely had time to think. She threw herself forward, pushing Kara down as the first volley erupted. The ground split with molten light. Sable's wings flared, forming a barrier of plasma that cracked under the barrage. Arl rose behind them, a roar splitting the storm one that shook the stones. His lightning arced through the rain, striking the enforcers in one blinding flash. When the smoke cleared, the courtyard was scorched black. Sethan staggered to one knee. Armor cracked, fury and disbelief warring across his face. You side with vermin. Lyris met his gaze, eyes shining with something old and terrible. I side with the living. She turned, grabbed Kara's wrist, this time without hesitation, and ran dot above them. Auril and Sable soared into the clouds, their roars echoing against the dying thunder. Behind, Lord Sethan's voice followed ragged, venomous. You can run, cousin. But the council will come for both of you. Lyris didn't look back. The rain washed blood from her hands, and for the first time, she didn't care who saw. Ahead, the Terran shuttle opened its doors, bright light cutting through the storm. Kara looked at her, breathless. You finally took my hand. Lyris smiled faintly. And I finally understood why you offered it. The engines roared to life. The tower crumbled behind them, swallowed by the rain. The Terran shuttle rose through clouds that bled red with stormlight, engines groaning against the drag of wind and smoke. Inside the cargo bay, silence settled heavy and fragile. Lyris Aaron sat near the viewport, cloak scorched and soaked through. Her dragons curled close, Arl still weak but healing, Sable standing watch like a shadow with teeth. Across from her, Kara Nolan stared at her own hands, scarred and trembling, as if only now realizing what she had done. Neither spoke for a long time. When the shuttle cleared the clouds, the stars opened like a wound. Lyris broke the quiet first. I should have left you, she said softly. Kara's head snapped up. You didn't. I almost did, Lyris admitted. On that landing, when you reached for me. The insult of it burned hotter than the fire behind us. I thought myself above you. Kara managed a tired laugh. Guess I should have asked first. You should have, Lyris agreed. Then, after a beat, but I am glad you didn't. Kara blinked, caught between confusion and a smile. That's not what I expected to hear. Lyris looked out at the stars, eyes reflecting distant light. My people spend their lives learning what must not be done. Whom not to touch, what not to feel. You did both without shame. And somehow you reminded me why rules exist, to be tested by those who care enough to break them. Aurel shifted, his warm breath curling against her arm. You speak like a poet when you should be sleeping. He teased gently. Perhaps I am too tired for pride. She murmured aloud. The dragons shared a look, mirror and flame, and returned to their watch. Kara leaned forward. What happens now? Your cousin, your people, they're not going to just let this go. They'll send hunters, Lyris said. Ships faster than this one. Orders written in the blood of oaths. They'll call me a traitor. Then we need somewhere to hide. There is no hiding from the High Council, Lyris replied. Then she glanced at Kara, her tone softening. But there is running together. Kara smiled faintly. You sure your dragons are okay sharing air with a human? Aurel lifted his head, eyes narrowing. We tolerate you, he said, dry as smoke. Sable flicked his tail. Barely, Lyris exhaled through laughter she didn't expect to find. They lie. They like you. I'll take that as progress, Kara said. Hours passed. The shuttle reached the edge of Kalari airspace. The pilot, a young Terran officer, called back through the intercom. We're nearing the jump corridor. Once we cross, the Council's sensors can't reach us. Strap in for turbulence. Lyris's heart tightened. Freedom waited beyond that jump, but so did exile. The truth of what she had done would spread faster than the stars could hold it. The dragons stirred uneasily, their scales humming low. Something's wrong, Sable hissed. Aurel's wings twitched. Engines feel off balance. Then came the tremor. The shuttle pitched sideways, alarms flaring red across the cabin. Kara grabbed the wall. We're hit? Not yet, Lyris said grimly. But something's pulling us back. Through the viewport, a shape tore from the void, sleek, angular, unmistakably Kalari. A hunter-class vessel. The cum crackled with a voice Lyris knew too well. You cannot flee your heritage, Lyris. The High Council commands your surrender. Sethan, she whispered. Her cousin's voice dripped venom. You've brought shame on our bloodline. Stand down, and perhaps they'll let the human live. Kara looked at her. He's serious. Yes, Lyris said. And he's wrong. Aurel's throat glowed faintly. We cannot fight that ship. No, Lyris agreed, rising to her feet. But we can show them something they've never seen. She strode to the viewport, dragons flanking her. Kara followed, gripping the support rail. Lyris reached for the cum, her fingers steady. Sethan, she said, her voice carrying the old authority of her house. You think this is about touch, about purity. But you forget every empire dies when it forgets how to feel. You would trade our honor for a human's pity. I would trade your fear for her courage, she said, then turned to Kara. Now. Kara didn't hesitate. She crossed to the console, overriding the safety locks. Opening a direct transmission beam, visual, unfiltered. Every camera in the shuttle feeding into Kalari command channels. Sethan's face filled the screen. Pale with fury. And there, in front of him and the entire council link, Lyris reached out and took Kara's hand. It wasn't defiance now. It was truth. The dragons flared behind them, light and shadow twining like wings made of flame. The energy surge painted the shuttle in gold. Let them see. Kara whispered. They already do, Lyris said. The transmission flickered. Sethan shouting. The council's voices clashing, but through the static. Millions of Kalari saw what their highborn could not destroy. Two species standing side by side. The Noblewoman unafraid of the human's touch. Then Lyris cut the channel and said quietly, Jump. The stars stretched. Then broke apart as the shuttle entered hyperspace. In the stillness that followed, Kara let out a long breath. You just started a revolution, didn't you? Lyris smiled faintly. No, you did when you refused to let go. Sable coiled at her feet. The world will burn for this. Aurel rested his head in her lap. Or rebuild. Lyris looked toward Kara at her hands, at the warmth that had undone centuries of arrogance. Perhaps both, she said. Fire always makes room for new things to grow. Outside, hyperspace shimmered like water over light. Kara leaned back, exhaustion and awe tangled in her expression. You know, she said, for someone who nearly punched me for touching her, you've come a long way. Lyris laughed quietly. For someone who should have run, so have you. Their hands stayed linked as the dragons purred and the stars danced beyond glass. Subscribe for more epic sci-fi stories. Let the stars guide your next adventure.